profiles are deceptively difficult, or they don't have any paired shapes to match, but they're foreshortened in such a way that without paying attention to the planal surface, the small surface traversing the form to the other side of the face can and or will look entirely flat and graphic. The nose, the forehead, the cheeks, the muzzle, the lips, the eyes, the sockets, the lids, the orbitals, the chins, and the bridge of the nose all have traversing planes that need addressing in their values, as well as their linear cross-contour design across the form, changing perspective. In the case of this image, the surface direction will end up a darker value than the planes facing directly or slightly off from direct view. The trick is not to spread them too far across the form, or they become like smudged makeup versus actual form. The surfaces that are facing us turn under along the jawline and up onto the muzzle. These values should also be darkened down more than the planes facing towards us. All of the features need a slight change of direction and value, a little different than the larger, more prominent surface features. Because they are smaller means their planal surface is smaller. It's also ever-changing, where the face planes are a little more constant. This changes how we perceive the values, therefore the forms. The neck has all the same attributes, crossing the throat and the voice box. The neck values will be even darker because of the neck being turned downward or facing away from the light source even more. I spend time throughout the entire drawing building up the values. I get them to a point where I recognize the structure, then I lose it all to darken everything down again. I'm particular about maintaining a likeness in the drawing studies I do. In this case, my model is skateboarder and filmmaker Gabe Cruz of Braille Skateboards. Not only do I want to maintain the value range that keeps or retains the right properties for his ethnicity, I also want to make sure he's seen as someone in the sun almost every day. At one point I do take the values too far, but eventually paint out the darkness with the eraser, bringing everything up at least one value all over. The highlights can't be too bright either. The light hitting him is low light, so the highlights aren't so extreme. But also, darker surfaces that are not totally reflective are darker altogether, including their reflections. The local values being darker affects everything about the surface of the form. As a result, the highlights will be dampened or darkened. When building up the darker tones, it can be tough to maintain clean tones. You'll see me use my fingers often to clean up the linear striations and spread out the tones a little. Charcoal's nice and forgiving like that, and the surface I'm using, smooth newsprint, holds and disperses the charcoal really well. I'm eyeballing the features and mentally aligning them to one another to keep the drawing template free, which I again remind you more advanced artists to try every now and again, just to help you learn a little bit more about your design and drawing strengths, as well as the weaknesses you have, which will help you plan, design, and execute more effectively. It'll also bring tons of confidence to your approach and will remind you of what you still need to work on and make improvements in. The hair was hard to maintain the volumes because of how dark and how light absorbent his hair is. I pushed the shape to a dark, flat value first, and then sculpted the forms back in using the eraser to draw with. Later on, I'll use the pencil to imply strands, uniform and loose. Those would be considered tertiary details and have no place in the first two stages of the drawing process. Unless, again, you challenge yourself to start, maintain, and finish the drawing by using details only. And, that's just like a random challenge. I made sure to turn the hair forms along the skull's contour line to our eyes. And then shaded back in the turn of each S and C curve to create gradations across the sculpted shapes I earlier generated. Basically, with the hair, I draw back and forth between the pencil and the eraser. I build up the ear one time, not jumping in too quickly, over-designing the shapes and overstating the values. I keep building up all the edges together to create an overall form within the structures, since I'm trying to lift it from the page and share its intricate roadmap of shapes. The cast shadow into the ear really helps project it off the skull, where the darks in the concha, the whole of the ear, have a deeper, darker look to them, hollowing out the ear even further. I stay away from any visible line structure until I know it's absolutely needed. By adding bold lines too early in the drawing process, the lines destroy the integrity of the 3D forms. And they also break the illusion of the forms that we worked so hard to build up to this point. Somewhere along the way, I push forward the lips and the muzzle just a little more to the left, so the features don't fall directly on top of one another, which would flatten everything out. The total time for this sketch was around 1 hour, 7 minutes. Building up tones to a darker value can slow down the process a little bit, so be prepared. It's not so much about the speed, but things do move so much quicker when consolidating your thoughts rather than building up in academic steps. I'm not advocating that you should just let go, but I am saying try to do more with less, forget the tools sometimes, and wing it. You'll find that you know more than you think you know, and you'll find ways to do less with more, and you'll find some beautiful calligraphy along the way.